Hey, hi, and welcome to Book 10 of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Here we go. To my soul, are you ever going to achieve goodness? Ever going to be simple, whole, and naked, as plain as the body that contains you? Know what an affectionate and loving disposition would feel like? Ever be fulfilled? Ever stop desiring, lusting, and longing for people and things to enjoy? Or for more time to enjoy them? Or for most or for some other space or country, a more temperate clime? Or for people easier to get along, and instead be satisfied with what you have and accept the present of all of it and convince yourself that everything is a gift of the gods, that things are good and always will be, whatever they decide and have in store for the preservation of the perfect entity, the good and the just and beautiful, creating all creatures, connecting and embracing them, and gathering in the separated fragments to create more like them. Will you ever take your stand as a fellow citizen with gods and human beings, blaming no one, deserving no one's censure? Focus on what nature demands, as if you were governed by that alone. Then do that and accept it, unless your nature as a living being would be degraded by it. Then focus on what nature demands and accept that too, unless your nature is a rational, as a rational being would be degraded by it. And of course, rational also implies civic. Follow these guidelines and don't waste time on anything else. Everything that happens is either endurable or not. If it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. If it's unendurable, then stop complaining. Your destruction will mean its end as well. Just remember, you can endure anything your mind can make endurable by in treating it as in your interest to do so, in your interest or in your nature. If they made a mistake, correct them gently and show them where they went wrong. If you can't do that, then the blame lies with you or no one. Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time. The twinning strands of faith wove both of them together, your own existence and the things that happen to you. Whether it's atoms of the or nature, the first thing to be said is this: I'm a part of a world controlled by nature. Secondly, that I have a relationship with other similar parts. And with that in mind, I have no right as a part to complain about what is assigned to me by the whole, because what benefits the whole cannot harm its parts, and the whole does nothing that doesn't benefit it. That's a trait shared by all natures. But the nature of the world is defined by a second characteristic as well. No outside force can compel it to cause itself harm. So by keeping in mind the whole, I form part of it. I will accept whatever happens, and because of my relationship to other parts, I will do nothing selfish, but aim instead to join them, to direct my every action towards what benefits us all, and to avoid what doesn't. If I do that, then my life should go smoothly, as you might expect a citizen's life to go, one whose actions serve his fellow citizens, and one who embraces the community's degree. The whole is compounded by the nature of individual parts whose destruction is inevitable. Destruction here means transformation. If the process is harmful to the parts and unavoidable, then it's hard to see how the whole can run smoothly with parts of it passing from one state to another, all of them built only to be destroyed in different ways. Does nature set out to cause its own components harm and make them vulnerable to it? Indeed, predestined to it? Or is it oblivious to what goes on? Neither one seems very plausible. But suppose we throw out nature and explain these things through inherent properties. It would still be absurd to say that the individual things in the world are inherently prone to change, and at the same time be astonished at it or complain. On what grounds was it happening, contrary to nature? And least of all when things return to state from where they came from, because our elements are either simply dispersed or are subject to a kind of gravitation, the solid portions being pulled towards Earth, and what is ethereal, 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 drawn into air, and until they absorbed into the universal logos, which is subject to periodical conflagrations or renew through continual change. And don't imagine either that those elements, the solid ones and the ethereal, are with us from birth. The influx took place yesterday or the day before from the food that we ate, the air that we breathe. Sorry. And that's what happens, not to the person your mother gave birth to, but to the but but if you're inextricably linked to it through your sense of individuality. That's not what we're talking about here. Epithets for yourself: upright, modest, straightforward, sane, cooperative, disinterested. Try not to exchange them for others, and if you should forfeit them, set about getting them back. Keep in mind that sanity means understanding things, each individual thing for what they are, not losing the thread. And cooperation means accepting what nature assigns to you, accept it willingly. And disinterest means that the intelligence should rise above the movements of the flesh, the rough and the smooth alike, should rise above fame, above death, and above and everything like them. If you maintain your claim to these epithets without caring if others apply to them, if others apply them to you or not, you will become a new person, living a new life. To keep on being the person that you've been, to be to keep being muddled and degraded by the life that you're living, is to be devoid of sense and too much a fond of life. Like those animal fighters at the games, torn half into pieces, covered in blood and gore, and still pleading to be held over till tomorrow to be bitten and clawed again. Set sail then with this handful of epithets to guide you, and steer a steady course if you can, like an emigrant to the island of the blessed. And if you feel yourself adrift as if you've lost control, then hope for the best and put in something where you can regain it. Or leave life altogether, not in anger but matter of factly, straightforwardly, without arrogance, in the knowledge that you've at least done what that much in life. And if you try to keep these epithets in mind, it will help you a great deal to keep the gods in mind as well. What they want is not flattery, but for rational things to be like them. For figs, do what figs are meant to do, and dogs, what dogs and beasts and people. Operatics, combat and confusion, sloth and servility. Every day they blot out the sacred principle of laws, which you daydream thoughtlessly about or just let aside. Your actions and perceptions need to aim at accomplishing practical ends, at the exercise of thought, at maintaining a confidence founded on the understanding and obtrusive confidence hidden in plain sight. When will you let yourself enjoy straightforwardness, seriousness, or understanding individual things, their nature and substance, their place in the world, their lifespan, their composition, who can possess them, who they are to give and to receive? Spiders are proud of catching flies, men of catching hares, fish in net, boars, bears, Samaritans, criminal psychology, and how they all apply to one another. Quite the ability to see that, apply it constantly, use it to train yourself. Nothing is as conducive to spiritual growth. He has stripped away his body, and realizing at some point that he will have to abandon mankind and leave all this behind, has dedicated himself to serving justice in all that he does and nature in all that happens. What people say or think about him or how they treat him isn't something that he worries about. Only these two questions: is what he is doing now the right thing to be doing? Does he accept and welcome what he's been assigned to? He has been stripped away of all other occupations, all other tasks. He only wants to travel a straight path to God, to the way of the law. Why all this guesswork? You can see what needs to be done. If you can see the road, follow it cheerfully without turning back. If not, hold up and get the best advice you can. If anything gets in the way, forge on ahead. Make good use of what you have in hand, sticking to what seems right, the best goal to achieve, the one that we fall short of when we fail. To follow the logos in all things is to be relaxed, energetic, joyful, and serious at once. When you wake up, ask yourself: does it make a difference to you if other people blame you for doing what's right? It makes no difference. Have you forgotten what the people who are so vociferous in praise or blame of others are like when they sleep and eat? Forgotten their behavior, their fears, their desires, their thefts, their depredations, not the physical ones, but those committed by what should be highest in them. What creates when it chooses loyalty, humility, truth, order, well-being? Nature gives and nature takes away. Anyone with sense and humility will tell. Give and take as you please, not out of defiance, but out of obedience and goodwill. Only a short time left. Live as if you were alone, out in the wilderness. No difference between here and there. The city that you live is in live in is the world. Let people see someone living naturally and understand by what that means. Let them let them kill him if they can't stand it. Better than living like this. To stop talking about what a good man is like and just be one. Continual awareness of all time and space, of the size and lifespan of things around them. A grape seed is in in infinite space, a half twist of corkscrew against eternity. Bear in mind that everything that exists is already fraying at the edge and in transition, subject to fragmentation and to rot, or that everything was born to die. How they act and how they eat and sleep and mate and defecate and all that rest. And then when they order and exult and rage and thunder from a high, and yet just consider the things that they've submitted to a moment ago and the reasons for it and the things they'll submit to again before very long. Each of us needs what nature gives us, what nature gives it, when nature gives it. The earth knows longing for the rain, the sky knows longing, and the world longs to create what will come to be. I tell it, I share your longing. And that isn't and isn't that what we mean by inclined to happen? Possibilities. To keep on living, you should be used to it by now. To end it, if it was your choice after all, it was your choice after all. To die having met your obligations. These are the only options, reasons for optimism. Always keep before you that this is no different from an empty field, and the things that in it are the same as on a mountaintop on or a seashore, whatever. Plato gets to the heart of it, fencing a sheepfold in the mountains and milking goats or sheep. My mind, what is it? What am I making of it? What am I using it for? Is it empty of thought, isolated and torn loose from those around it, melted into flesh and blended with it so that it shares its urges? When a slave runs away from the master, we call him a fugitive slave, but law of nature is master too, and to break it is to become fugitive. Feel grief, anger, or fear is to try to escape from something decreed by the ruler of all things now or in the past or in the future. And that ruler is the law which governs what happens to each of us. To feel grief or anger or fear is to become fugitive or fugitive from justice. He deposits his sperm and leaves, and then a force not his takes it and goes to work and creates a child. This from what? Or he pours food down the throat, and then a force not his takes it and creates sensation, desires, daily life, physical strength, and much else. To look at these things going on silently and see the force that drives them, as we see the force that pushes things and pulls them, not with our eyes, but just as clearly. To bear in mind constantly that all of this has happened before and will happen again, the same plot from beginning to end, the identical staging. To produce them in your mind, and you will know from experience or from history the court of Hadrian, of Antonius, the courts of Philip, Alexander, Roses, all just the same, only the people different. People who feel hurt and resentment picture them as the pig in the sacrifice, kicking and squealing all the way, like a man alone in his bed, silently weeping over the chain that binds us. That everything has to submit, but only rational beings can do so voluntarily. Stop whatever you're doing for a moment and ask yourself, am I afraid of death because I won't be able to do this anymore? When faced with people's bad behavior, turn around and ask, when have you acted like that? If you saw money as good or pleasure or social position, your anger will subside as soon as you recognize that they have acted under compulsion. What else they do? Or remove the compulsion if you can. When you look at Satrion, see Socrates, or Eutychus or Hymen, when you look at Euphrates or Eutychon or Sylvanus or Alcrippon, or see Tropiophorus, when you look at Xenophon, see Crito or Severus, when you look at yourself, see any of these emperors, and same with everyone else, then let it hit you. Where are they now? Nowhere or wherever. That way you'll see human life for what it is, smoke, nothing. Especially when you recall that once things alter, they cease to exist through all the endless years to come. Then why such turmoil to live your life rightly? Isn't that good enough? The raw material that you're missing, the opportunities, what what is any of this but training for your logos in life observed accurately, scientifically. So keep at it until it's fully digested. As a strong stomach digests whatever it eats, as a blazing fire takes whatever you throw on it and makes it light and flame, that no one can say truthfully that you're not a straightforward or honest person, that anyone who thinks that believes a falsehood. The responsibility is all yours. No one can stop you from being honest or straightforward. Simply resolve to not go on living if you aren't. It would be contrary to the logos. Given the material that we made of, what is the sanest thing that we can do or say? Whatever it might be, you can do or say it. Do not pretend that anything is stopping you. You will never stop complaining until you feel the same pleasure that the hedonist gets from self indulgence, only from doing what's proper to human beings as far as circumstances inherent of what fortuitous allow. Enjoyment means doing as much as your nature requires of you can. And you can do that anywhere. A privilege not granted to a cylinder to determine its own action, or to water, or to fire, or to any of the things governed by nature alone, or by an irrational soul. Too many things obstruct them and get in their way, but the intellect and the logos are able to make their way through anything in their path by inborn capacity or sheer force of will. Keep before your eyes the ease with which they do things, the ease with which the logos is carried through all the things. As fire is drawn upward or a stone falls to earth, the cylinder rolls down an inclined plane. That's all you need. All other obstacles either affect the lifeless body or have no power to shake or harm anything unless misperception takes over or the logo surrenders voluntarily. Now, otherwise, those who those they obstruct would be degraded by them immediately. In all other entities, when anything bad happens to them, it affects them for the worse. Whereas here is a person improved by it, if I can put it like that, and we admire him for reacting as a person should. And keep in mind that nothing can harm one of nature's citizen except what harms the city he belongs to, and nothing harms the city but except what harms its law. And there's no so called misfortune that can do as long as the law is safe, so is the city and the citizen. If you immerse yourself in the principles of truth, the briefest, the most random reminder is enough to dispel all fear and pain. Leaves that the wind drives earthward, such are the generations of men. Your children leaves applauding loyally and heaping praise upon you, or turning around and calling down curses, sneering and mocking from a safe distance. A glorious reputation handed down by leaves. All of these spring up in springtime, and the wind blows them away and the tree puts forth others to replace them. None of us have much time, and yet you act as if things were eternal, the way you fear and long for them before long darkness, and whoever buries you mourn in their turn. A healthy pair of eyes should see everything that can be seen and not say a no to bright, which is a symptom of ophthalmia. A healthy sense of hearing or smell should be prepared for any sound or scent. A healthy stomach should have the same reaction to all foods as a mill toward grinds. So too a healthy mind should be prepared for anything, one that keeps saying, "Are my children all right?" or everyone should approve of me, is like ice that can only stand pale colors, or teeth that can handle only mush. It doesn't matter how good a life you've led. There'll still be people standing around your bed who'll welcome the sad event. And even with the intelligent and the good, won't there be someone thinking finally to be through with that old school teacher? Even though he never said anything, you could always feel him judging you. And that's for a good man. How many traits do you have that will make a lot of people glad to be rid of you? Remember that when time comes, you'll be less reluctant to leave. Sorry, if you can tell yourself, this is the sort of life I'm leaving. Even the people around me, the ones I've spent so much time fighting for, praying for, caring about, even they want me gone in hopes that it'll make their own lives easier. How could anyone stand a longer how could anyone stand a longer stay here? And yet don't leave angry with them. Be true to who you are, caring, sympathetic, kind, and not as if you were being torn away from life, but the way it is when someone dies peacefully, how the soul is released from the body, that how you should leave, that's how you should leave them. It was nature that bound you to them, that tied the knot, and nature that unties you. I'm released from those around me, not dragged against my will, but unresisting. There are things that nature demands, and this is one of them. Learn to ask of all actions, why are they doing that? Start with your own. Remember, that which pulls the string is within, hidden from us. Is speech, is life, is the person. Don't conceive of the rest as parts of it. The skin that contains it and the accompanying organs, which are tools like a carpenter's axe, except that they're attached to us from birth and are of not much use without what moves and holds them, and still than the weaver's shuttle, the writer's pencil, the driver's whip. Okay. With that, we come to the end of book 10. Uh, so much of it, and let's try and unbox some of the things that I have understood. I was surprised at the way it ended, and let's start from there. So he says that what is that which is stays with you throughout your life? It's 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 like a skin or the organs. It's the consciousness that he mentions, beyond layers of skin and organs, and all that you have within your purview. There is also the consciousness which has been there with you from beginning and will remain till your end. So be cognizant of that, and and make good use of that, right? uh, a step back, he asks about how we spend all our lives trying to impress and trying to make a mark, uh, at least for our next generation to be appreciative of us. But is does that really matter? The people who mourn you when you are gone, will those, they also will be soon gone. So does that matter? And however noble and great and pious and magnificent you are, there will always be somebody who would be happy to see you gone. There would be a few people who would be glad that you're gone. So be cognizant of that. It doesn't matter how kind and considerate and nice you are as a person, there would always be people who would be not so upset that you've left. And so does that mean you have to stop being who you are? No. Stay true to your nature, but be cognizant of that, and therefore don't attach too much, or don't uh, fixate too much towards the result of things. Go with the flow of nature and accept as it goes. One of the beautiful examples, leaves that the wind drives earthwards, such are the generations of men. Here, the leaves represent the children, and and the children are the ones who would remember fondly with tributes to their parents and grandparents. But how long are they going to last, and are you going to remain in the memories of all the future generations? That's when he goes back to an example that he shares in all the books before this, about all the great kings who've come and gone, and how many people remember them. The people who would have mourned for them also are dead and gone and have been forgotten. Some of these kings are remembered, but are their virtues celebrated, or they remembered and mourned for or grieved for? Really not. It's the nature of life, things move on, and that's how it is supposed to be. What else does he say? He gives us three possibilities as on how you could live. One is to keep on living. You should be used to what happens in life and not get upset about it, and take it to the end of it, and die. So so what is the context of this? The context of this is that uh, uh, each of us needs to be true to our nature. Is everything in your control? No. uh, there is of, at least as a believer in God, Marcus Aurelius says there is a God, and uh, he creates your destiny. And you need to believe in that. You need to believe in what nature has in store for you. And another lesson that he's repeated in all the chapters is that uh, the nature does what it's good for it as a whole. And if something is good for the whole, then it cannot be bad for the parts, and you are a part of the whole. Be cognizant of that, be recognize that, and acknowledge that what is good for the nature cannot be bad for you. And if it is only bad for you and good for nature, you will have to accept that. If it is bad for the entire nature, then it is bad for you, and that there is nothing that you can do about it. Now, going another step back, in any situation, in any kind of um, challenge that you face in life, there are only two things that you can do. One, you can endure it. One, that it is endurable, so endure it. The other is it's unendurable, then just move on in life. If it's unendurable, then what else can you do? So it's a very straightforward approach to looking at things. And then going one more step back, he says that what are the epithets that you want to hold yourself against? What are the things that people you want people to talk about uh, when they mention you? What are the characteristics that they want you would like them to talk about you? Upright, modest, straightforwardness, sane, cooperative, disinterested. And then he focuses a lot about straightforwardness. He says that it's possibly one of the best virtues for you to have, or to build in yourself. Yeah. And yeah, that's about it. I've kind of, in my analysis of the book, I've kind of gone from back to the front, and whatever I could remember of it. Thank you very much. I know I've been a bit sleepy, and I know it's been a few days since I put a video, but thanks for being there, and we will see each other in book 11. Thank you. Namaste.